All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tub Takes. This is a video podcast where we talk about the latest and greatest happenings in the VGC community. And this is definitely the first time that I've said that today. Um, so I am joined by three special guests this week to talk about EUIC and the GC and the latest Twitter drama that I personally started. First and foremost, I am joined by Kunal Kanodia, aka Abhay. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Having a pretty good night.
That's good.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
great to
that's
have
it.
you.
You want me to say more?
No, no. If you
Just
want
glad
to,
to represent.
yeah.
Yeah, just glad to represent Canal. He def he definitely needs some representation. So
And then I'm joined by my brand new co-host. We actually kicked Alex off the podcast, and we got a new co-host because he's just on the podcast more than any of us. It's Nails. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty okay. Had an interesting time traveling back from Europe because I booked an extensive itinerary, uh, and so I overslept and I'm a bit groggy right now. But I'm feeling okay. All
You
things
said you took
considered.
10 flights.
I did take 5 flights on the way there, 5 flights on the way back, and they cost like pennies relative to what they would have cost otherwise. And so it was worth it for my current
I'm
financial situation, at least.
I'm glad that none of your flights got delayed or anything of that nature because that's a recipe for disaster if anything goes wrong.
True. I hit, so we take those.
Yeah. And then, of course, last but not least, for the first time, I think, on Top Takes, we have Sohaib. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
It's been a
Thanks for
long
coming
time
on.
coming.
Uh,
Yeah.
we have we have a lot to talk about this week, and yeah, I guess first and foremost, of course, the big thing that happened this week is the European International Championships that Nails and Sohaib you both attended, and it was won by the one and only where'd the thing go? One and only Paul Chua. So Paul Chua beat Agati in the finals in the Palance Mirror, and this is also, I guess, notable because both of you two placed very highly, and so I guess, yeah, tell us about how you did, about your run a little bit, and your experience at EUIC. So
Please
you
go
want to
ahead,
first?
Neil. Oh, sure. I'll go first. I was really nervous before going to the tournament. I felt like this tournament would be really, really hard compared to like all the other regionals I've attended this season. But uh, I just used something that I was very comfortable with. I felt like it gave me a variety of really good matchups, really good neutral matchups. I figured like I can just um, outplay my opponents. So I would rather have a team that gives me like even matchups into everything than having like some good matchups, some worse matchups. So yeah, overall, it went really well. I had a lot of fun. I played a lot of players from Spain, and so at least most of them were players from Spain, and then the the next the most were US players. So it just felt like home at that point.
Well, yeah, you did well in the tournament because you mostly played U.S. players, right?
That's fair. That's fair.
So did you use the same team that Liakos did to get top eight?
I'm sorry.
Did you use the
I
same
can't.
team that Liakos did to get top eight?
Yes, so actually, funny story is a few days before the tournament. So I was working on this team with Pastor, and Pastor was saying that Lagos wanted to play in the tournament, and he didn't really have a team. So we just decided to give him our team, and he changed some things to better suit his play style. So yeah, basically he just took our team and just changed like the Terra type on the Tinglu and put Helping Hand on the Arcanine over the Extreme Speed.
Yeah. Well, you did. I think you got what top? You got 11th place, right? Top 16.
Yeah,
Finally broke that 33rd place curse. A really, really great performance. So congratulations.
thank you.
And then, of course, we also have Nails, who also finished top 16 with an 11-3 performance. You want to talk a little bit about your experience in London?
And I also used a similar team to Sohaib. I changed the last two slots, which I mean everyone is free to. But I still had Arc, Amoongus, Palafin, Fluttermane because it's really good. So my story for this tournament, basically, was this team had done really well. Excuse me. This team had done really well at Fort Wayne. Um, I spent like the first 9 days of prep just trying to counter it. I just wanted to show up with a counter and smash it because everyone would be playing it. And indeed, I played it 6 of my first 9 rounds of the tournament. The issue was, after 9 days of trying and like spending most of my prep time, I just hadn't come up with a team that actually reliably countered it yet. Um, and so I was like, okay, this team is really resilient to being countered. I'm just gonna run it. And so I built a team on Tuesday, a version that I felt like pretty adequately responded to meta pressures and also felt like it would be good in the mirror. And yeah, I just hadn't practiced with it until Tuesday. And I went 11-3 with it because the team was really, really broken. I went 5-1 in the mirror because I heavily checked for it. And on day two, I played it no times. And instead, I played a bunch of people who thought they were countering the team. And I went 3-2 against people who thought they were countering the team in day two because the team is really, really resilient to being countered. And because I played well. Playing well is always important. So.
Definitely. And so congratulations on your performance as well. Now, we do see, of course, the team that everyone is talking about right now. I've heard referred to a few different ways, but the Fluttermane, Arcanine, Palafin, Amoonguss core, and then the last 2 slots, very often Tinglu, but can be kind of flexed into a lot of different things. And yeah, like we said, that was kind of everywhere at Fort Wayne Regionals, kind of all over the place at this tournament. Although notably, only 2 of the top 8, or 3 of the top 8 slots rather, use that composition, which is still pretty crazy for one core, but still only 3 of the top 8 slots. I've heard it compared. Actually, yeah, let's talk about the team a little bit. Was the metagame at EUIC what you expected it to be?
I think you should go to like Fluttermane on the Cut Explorer and then check the Amoonguss Arcanine Palafin boxes.
Amoonguss, Palafin, Arcanine. There are 36 in the top 128. So about a quarter of the field that did well.
Someone else take it. Sorry, I'm trying my best.
All right, Sohaib. When you played at EUIC, did you feel like the metagame looked like what you expected it to?
I expected to play a lot more mirrors and Lily Cole teams, but to my surprise, I only had 2 mirrors. But like the Iron Hand slots was different, so I played 2 mirrors and just a bunch of random teams. A lot of Chiyu Fluttermane stuff, 1 Lily Cole, and yeah, and a lot of Scarf, Great Tusk, Dragonite type of teams with Chi and Pao. That was something that caught me a little bit by surprise. And in day 2, just the amount of Dozo teams that were there, I did not expect Dozo to make such a return after not seeing it at all. So that was something that I had not really expected.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the other team that was highly represented in the top 8, it was the team that both Joan and that Lex used, that we saw on stream a couple times. I know Carson and Choppa both used it to make day 2 as well. We saw Sitchit use it on stream. This team was sort of everywhere, and of course got 2 of the top 8 slots as sort of a revival of Dondozo. And I guess I can actually speak to this team maybe a little better than other people can because we had a stream over this weekend. So we had 2 streams that we were just talking. We were rewatching the matches that were on stream and analyzing them, breaking them down. And first off, y'all turned out for that. That stream did super well. And I guess you guys really enjoyed that content. So I definitely want to revisit that in the future for events that I am not attending. But we did see the Lex team quite a bit, and Lex was in chat to talk about their run. and what they're doing. So I heard a little bit about that. We might also be getting a team report at some point, to where they will talk about the team more in depth. But they were saying this team absolutely farms balance. It was a Dozo team built to beat balance. At least the Lex version was actually oblivious in Dozo, rather than the other two abilities that we've seen in Unaware and Water Veil. Water Veil exclusively being a Nails thing, but we have seen it. It was oblivious because it blocks Intimidate, and so as a result, the balance teams, they could not switch their Arcanine, they could not switch the Gyarados into, if they had a Gyarados, we didn't see Gyarados as highly represented at this tournament, but didn't see the you can't switch those into the Dozo to intimidate it, and if it's not intimidated, then it's really hard for them to actually deal with it. Yes, you can switch the Palafin in, but even then, and you can potentially haze, but one, Palafins were dropping haze, and I actually want to go to the Top Cut Explorer at some point to look at that. And two, even then, because I believe it was Terra Grass, Terra Blast, and
Yes.
Dozo. They also like had the ability to just catch you on the switch, and even if you did, you potentially wasted a lot of momentum. You potentially lost your Palafin to a Terra Grass, Terra Blast, even if it's at neutral. You potentially lost a lot of other resources on the switch in, just trying to eliminate the Syndozo that the rest of the team was built to power through these sort of balanced teams. And so I was watching EUIC basically with the single thought of how do you beat the Palance team that is so common. And this was the team that stood out as the team that was best equipped to do it. And then, of course, in Top Cut, it lost to two different Palance variants. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because this is kind of like a reverse of Series 1, where everyone in Series 1 would say, like, oh, X niche tech beats Dondozo. Like, what was like one of the funnier examples? Spiritomb. Spiritomb beats Dondozo. But in this case, you had these teams that were meant to farm Palance, and they're obviously very successful in doing that and getting to top 8. But yeah, just ended up losing to Palance in the end. And it's a bit difficult to just categorize them losing to the teams of Palance, right? Because they lost to the two finalists, right? And two of the best players of all time. And Gabriel Agati.
Specifically, lost to Agati, who had Clear Smog on his Mungus, and Paul, who I don't remember precise. I mean, he had Haze on his Palafin, and also just like Specs Fluttermane is good. Sandtomb, I know, was capable at least of stealing a game.
Notably, also, Joan did not have Oblivious on his Palafin. That's the one that Paul beat. And Lex was saying that if you swap the top 8 matchups, then I think that they go the other way. Or at least that he thinks he has a favorable matchup into Paul, but not a favorable matchup into Agati.
Yeah, no, I think Agati wins the tournament in that case, because Clear Smog and Mungus was so perfect for Top Cut.
And so now I'm actually curious, because we were talking about it. Agati notably
Cut the Protector
ran
with
a
smoking
very...
sheets.
We do have open team sheets, yeah. It's actually linked in the document. So if you look at Agati's Palafin, he had a very interesting Palafin set. It was Wave Crash, Substitute, Jet Punch. And so because he had Clear Smog on Amoonguss, he got to run Substitute. And Substitute looked like it was really, really good on his stream sets. It was really cool to see. I think that like Paul crit a Pollen Puff to break the sub. And if he didn't do that, he was he's definitely going to lose that game. Or he was at least in a very bad spot in that game. I think that was game 3. But
Yep.
Sub really put in work on that Palafin set. And so now, as a result, I'm very curious how many Palafins were running Haze. Actually, okay, there were 39 who were running Haze, which means 8 were running something else, or 9. I guess 1 did not have Wave Crash. Who didn't have Wave Crash? One didn't have
The
Wave Crash,
bulk
one
up
didn't have
guy.
Protect.
The guy with bulk up was bulk up Drain Punch, Haze Jet Punch.
Okay, so that's the weird one. And then,
Pablo Garcia.
oh, was that the Surf Dozo guy?
No, that was just a Palance guy who had the
Oh,
bulk
just
up
Palance.
Drain Punch, Haze Jet Punch on his Palafin, and he's responsible for like a third of the weird moves, like the dropping Protect and the bulk up. and one of the two drain
Interesting.
punchers. Good move, by the way.
I mean, I think
We
one
do
other
see.
thing to think about, at least with talents as a general concept, isn't really it winning the tournament or necessarily getting second. Although like that obviously is significant. At the same time, though, the players who made it there are kind of the definition of player difference, in Agadi and Paul. But at least to me, the reason why um, talents is like such a dominant narrative of this tournament is the fact that like I don't know, like 20 of the top 32 teams had it, or it's just very much that fire, water, grass core where a lot of players who like were just making a name for themselves, like you see them up there as well, just using this team that everyone else is using. It's pretty similar, honestly, to Rinya Sun in my mind to in early 2022, where um it really began to dominate at least the early meta, and at least the narrative right now is like, okay, like it just seems very clear that this is the best team in the format. So, how do we just kind of evolve from here to try to beat it or just use it instead?
Um, it's definitely not a one-to-one comparison because I think Rinia's Sun was pretty locked in on the 6 Pokemon, and he didn't have much room to deviate. So that's correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Where's this one? I just pulled
Yeah,
up the
this one
teams that
you were
had
locked in on 4. Yeah, go ahead.
the four Pokemon: Fluttermane, Amoonguss, Arcanine, Palafin, and then I pulled up all the teams that have those four. We do see those four on 22 of the teams that made day two out of the 70 players who made day two or something, which is a pretty crazy ratio. That's more than a quarter of day two, almost a third of day two, was just running those four Pokemon. But we see, some people, Cello running like Chenpao Dragonite on that core. We see Baxcalibur. We see King Gambit, like Luca's team. We see the Iron Hands that Sohaib and Liakos were running. We see people dropping the Tinglu altogether, like Nick was. And so we see all sorts of different variants of this same sort of core. We see a Dondozo Tatsugiri with those four, which got top 64. So yeah, it seems like there's a lot of flexibility with those four. And so as a result, we were talking about how you want to build to beat this team, but if a team ever becomes so common that it is a surefire way to beat this core, the team has the flexibility to adapt with those last two slots and try to tailor those two slots for whatever the metagame turns into.
Yep. It's going to be a team that's going to be very resilient to meta pressure because of, yeah, the last 2 slots don't need to do anything specific. So the way you build the team, you have the 4 mons that you can mess with the sets a decent amount in order to adapt to the meta. Then you need to have 1 mon that you're going to bring to the mirror because Fluttermane is not very good in the mirror. It's okay. You can get by with it. But you're going to be punting some odds to people who are willing to spend a team slot responding to the mirror. And so, like, yeah, I think my ideal construction, like, basically in the mirror, you just bring Amoonguss, Palafin, Arcanine, and then your Mon 4, because basically you need to respond to Spore. And if you don't have your Goggles, Arcanine, and your Amoonguss, then you're going to get spored out. You're going to have a bad time. And we might even see Sub Palafin pop up as like more of a standard because it also is pretty good in the mirror. Either that or Terragrass. Terragrass is really good in the mirror too. But yeah, then month 5, your mirror attack. I used SD King Gambit. It was amazing. Like with a Lumberry, it was amazing. You just set up a you set up a Sword Stance on turn 1, and then you Terra Dark the Amoonguss, and they're not allowed to have Arcanine on the board, or you just like start chopping turn 1 instead of turn 2. And it just pushes too much damage, and most like Baxcalibur can't touch it. You just it's really good. Then Mon 6, you have them slot to respond to the rest of the metagame, and you just need kind of a check for everything that's trying to do rude things to you. And the way that slot's going to change the most over the course of the format, like there's 3 or 4 mons you can use in the mirror wrecker portion of the team. They're pretty much all boosters. Like Sword Stance Iron Hands is a good one. Nasty Block Goldango is probably pretty okay, and we might see more of it in the future. Um, but um, like the meta response slot was Tinglu on the base version that people like Justin Tang and Luca and Paul had. Um, I don't remember if Fagati had uh,
He had Tinglu
Tinglu as
too.
well. Um, yeah, so Tinglu is like the standard one. I had a Solvest Dragonite on my version. Um, there's I think that's the slot that people are going to mess around with the most. Um, like uh, the last quality that you need is at least one of the two Pokemon needs to be a Dark type. Just to respond to like size spam pressure. And also just dark coverage in general being pretty good into the core. But yeah, that's how you build a team.
Yeah, I agree. Like that last slot is mostly for the Chi Flutter main type of teams. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if that like that's why
Shoe
Tinglu
flutter is
worked.
the
Yeah,
yeah.
because for the longest time I could not decide what to put there because I was like it never came. But then as I started practicing more on the Chi Flutter matchup, I saw that wow, Tinglu is actually really broken in that matchup. Plus, I hit 5 out of 6 fissures in the tournament, so
Oh, well done.
Tinglu's the goat. So never leaving the
Um,
team now.
It's more of
of
a
course you
horse,
would.
I think. But yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
I said, I think it's an elk, isn't it? Um, anyways, I said on stream that if Tinglu hits fissure, I'll take a shot, and I did not. There's only one attempted the entire time on stream, exactly one. It was actually I think Liakos who attempted it, and that was the only time that anyone attempted fissure on the entire stream, and it missed. So I don't know. It's a pretty stark difference to what we saw at Fort Wayne, where actually that's a good thing to bring up. How many Tinglu had fissure? Only 18 out of the 45 in that made top 128 had fissure. So we actually do start to see it falling off, and we see a whole bunch of other options. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 different moves that we see on Tinglu that made it to top 128, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
one thing. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. So
Yeah, I was just going to say that one thing I will say is like fissure is just you have to run fissure if you're running Tinglu. It's just the fact that you always have a 30% chance to win the game right there is amazing. Like there's no other move that can do that. And I can tell you like there's so many sets where I had just practically lost and I was like, you know what? I'm already losing. I'll click fissure here. I did and I won those games in the set. So that's
Okay,
just having that
but
option
have you
is like
considered
amazing.
not getting to a losing position? Um,
you are
like
running the
here's
broken
the
team, and simply
here,
just
here,
like get to a winning position instead.
True,
and I
true,
say
but
that somewhat jokingly, but like
Mhm.
I think Luca in his team report said it best, which is that fissure is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like yes, it can bail you out of bad situations. How often will having another move on Tinglu make you less likely to go into those bad situations, right?
so
Um,
yeah.
and he brought up a good point. You know, like his set versus Fiona. Fiona notably like hit 4 fissures against him, and yes, that won her the game. But on the other hand, if she had something like a body press because she noticed she was weak to King Gambit on the team, and that really threatened it, would she have had to click fissure in the first place and accept a 20% chance of winning that set? That ended up manifesting itself, but like you could end up playing a more consistent game with a different move potentially, depending on the team. And so that's kind of the argument against it. I think Earthquake is just absolutely nuts. I think that if your team allows you to click Earthquake on Tinglu, it is such consistent damage that it will put you in winning positions. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we see in chat like Dave Katesh used a choice band Tinglu, which is absolutely real. And I think I'm not surprised that Earthquake, at least as the primary option instead of Fissure, is really catching up in popularity because I was running that with the like Oranguru team that I streamed with, and it just felt so unbelievably powerful. And we see it's just about equal to Fissure usage.
So, okay, to be fair, I did try other moves, but I felt like so I was not running AV set, I was running Lumberry, and just that move slot, nothing felt like it fit there. And as for like the Fiona point, like if you like rewatch that match, if she did not have fissure, there was no way she was breaking through that Among Us too. So one of the fissures went into the Among Us that helped close the matchup pretty easily. So but anyway, yeah, I do agree that having Earthquake, because I was debating Earthquake for a long time, but it just was not helping me in any of the matchups. So what
Was
I'm saying is like
Ruination not good in testing?
it didn't help as much. It was a pretty slow ruination. It was
Okay.
it just didn't end up helping in the matchup. Like I was you can ask like Pastor. I was bugging him for so long because I did not believe in Fisher at all before this tournament, but I just couldn't figure out any other moves. He was just like, just leave it there. It will just scare your opponents just when they see it. Just the fact that just being there is scary enough too. So, and it just ended up working out better than I hoped.
Sure. I've railed like and ranted about Fissure a lot, so you can watch one of those past broadcasts. Like I have a 90-second rant on a Freeze Eye video from Fort Wayne Regionals. But the synopsis of my rant is basically yeah what y'all have already said, that have a better move and don't get into the positions where you need to get bailed. I can say that one of the games I lost in the balance mirrors was because AJ fissured my Amoongus first shot. And like I just lost that game after that happened. But also games 2 and 3, he didn't bring the Tinglu because it was like it's not good in the mirror. You're not supposed to be bringing Tinglu in the mirror. It just like I said, you're supposed to be earlier. You're supposed to be bringing Fire, Water, Grass, and then whatever your best non 4 is for it. Like Tinglu kind of gets farmed. Palafin does way too much damage to it. So if you're not bringing Tinglu, I mean, I guess if your team has to bring Tinglu to the mirror, but Flutter's still just gonna be a better bring. Basically, yeah. Um, uh, Tinglu just doesn't. It's not. So the team slot is supposed to be rescuing your bad matchups. And if you think that maybe like Woshi and stuff is going to be a bad matchup, then you can add it. But Woshi and stuff, from my experience, was just like fine for the team, anyways. Um, and Ruination is like pretty good against Dondozo. Like, yeah, I don't know. This has been
So,
my rant for today against the Fissure.
all right, Abhay, you haven't spoken in a while. I'll give you a chance to talk about Fissure if you want.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't really care about Fissure. I think it's just like whatever. If you want to do it, then like you can miss it or hit if you want. Everyone has their own Fissure experience, so um, yeah. I kind of wanted to talk about the concept of like comfort with these like top, with like a lot of the top results because, um, especially in the case of like Agadi and Paul and just the overall concept of like Fire, Water, Grass, Flutter. I feel like compared to like say using like very like ruin intensive strategies, this is an example of how the Palin's core has kind of benefited from a lot of people already being comfortable with that from say like series two. So for example, with like Paul, like he essentially ran this team with like something over Tinglu all throughout series two. Agadi, he used a like similar like Flutter Arc Amoongus core with a Dragon type, or he had like Flutter Arc Amoongus, like Dragonite Garchomp, and then like something else. So at least to me, um, this Palin's core arguably had a head start on the meta compared to a lot of the other teams that we're seeing. So and kind of similarly, like Paul Ruiz's team, like, this is also just a Series Two team if you think about it. Nails' team is a Series Two team because or they could work in Series 2 because neither of them have runes,
But
right?
the Pokemon are legal in Series 2, but it's a lot better in Series 3.
You're right, yeah. But my overall like point is that like some of these cores have had a little bit of a head start compared to say like I don't know, like Chiyu Fluttermane, where that's obviously a very offensive and or volatile duo that might take a little bit more time to really figure out compared to like palettes.
All right, Nils, you said something really interesting, which is that these cores are way better in Series 3. I think most people would agree with you, but I want to investigate why.
Yeah, sure. So, uh, a lot of Series 2 was dominated by a lot of offensive cores. Um, there's like Lily Cole was big at the end. Um, like Talon Tusk was probably the meta defining one. Um, there was shoot, just like a bunch of different there were like various flavors of Flutter bundle stuff floating around. Um, just a lot of like pretty offensive stuff that all gets completely shut down by Tinglu. And so Tinglu locking those offensive comps out of the meta allowed this new Palance team to kind of thrive. Palance, like, well, it has a bunch of defensive pieces, and like that generally is like um, something you would run to be good into offense. It's actually like that's its main weakness is dealing with offense, especially if it's teching for the mirror. Um, it like kind of gets like it doesn't it responds very well to defensive teams. Fast stuff like Woshian type comps that may have gone in expecting that they might be good against a slower, more controlled team. But like my hot take on Palance is that it's actually an offensive team, just as pieces that are normally seen on defensive teams. But what makes it broken is, and I go into this more in my team report, which will be out tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow.
Okay.
Yesterday, if you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah, but basically, I think Palance is an offensive team. Um, just because its broken synergies are all offensive. You've got you pressure the opponent. You pressure them with like Spore, so they want to tear grass or have grass types. But you have an Arcanine and you have one more Pokemon to respond to the Spore pressure. Whether that is like Agati had Excalibur, Paul had Acrobatics Roaring Moon. Like you just want to be pressuring the Amoonguss and and I had like Terrifying Dragonite. You want to be pressuring the Amoonguss with like a nuke, and like also Spore, and that's just a really efficient pin to set up. Um, and for physical attackers, you can pin them with Will-O-Wisp and then Palafin damage if they Terrafire out of it. And just it's uh it like building pins into your team is like a really effective way to and like especially into the main core is just makes the team really effective at um forcing terras and then also punishing them, and so you just get a terra advantage on your opponent and you're able to use that to get a favorable trade at some point and get a Mon's advantage and like snowball the game from there. um and like it's yeah, basically it's pretty aggressive. But the flip side of this is that it doesn't invest in like speed control, and it like it couldn't really use talent effectively anyways because Amoonguss is slow, and like Arcanine is slow, and so it would probably you just lose to like tail and mirrors, so you don't even bother. It's looking for Palafin to capitalize to like deal with every offensive threat ever, but it just doesn't have enough in the tank. It can like jet punch a couple of guys, but um, like if there's a late game Iron Bundle after Amoonguss has been chipped down, that guy just kind of goes crazy. So yeah, basically Palance is weak to offense, and beats up like slower defensive teams that are looking to farm like the offensive teams that are looking to beat Palance. So we kind of have a rock paper scissors dynamic.
I think
Is that all right?
like another thing that I've kind of just been thinking about in this meta and just with the runes and stuff, how a Pokemon like Ting Lu doesn't necessarily lead to like as like what's the word? Not necessarily as like detrimental anti-synergy as say like a Chi-Yu or a Chen Pao might lend to. So yes, like you might have boards where like Ting Lu's on the field with your Flutter Mane, but it's not as much of a problem at least because you just have are able to trade damage a little bit more effectively. While say on like I think I saw Alex Gomez's team where it had a fairly defensive backbone with say like Hariyama, Gyarados, Amoonguss, King Gambit, but then sometimes it could feel a little bit difficult where you have your Chi-Yu on the field and you have all these Pokemon and they have a Flutter Mane clicking Moonblast or Shadow Ball into your team, and it's like, okay, kind of how do I pivot my way out of this? So I think that's just like another thing that at least the EUIC iterations of this combination has benefited on is that the synergies are just a bit more natural.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And
One thing. Oh, go ahead.
no, yeah, I just wanted to say, just to add to Nail's point, I do agree that hyper offensive teams are good into it, but I feel like they haven't been like properly constructed yet. Like I feel like in EUIC we didn't really have those type of like hyper offensive teams that can beat because like when I was going to EUIC, that's why one of the main reasons I put Iron Hands too because I fully expected to see like a ton of Iron Bundles, Chi, Flutter, main type of stuff. So I felt like AV Hands was pretty strong into that, but I didn't get a chance to face that many of them. And looking at the list, I don't think that many made it either. So
It's like
I
just James Evans, right? Like James
yeah,
Evans' team, I think is pretty hyper offensive. Um, and I was thinking
um
about what you were saying. No, you don't think so, Nels?
oh, I mean just my run had like three of them, so maybe I played an overrepresentation or something. But I played David Carrere, who was like Chien Pao, Dragonite, Great Tusk, Gyarados, King Gambit, Flutter. I played another guy, Luca Lucignoli, who went 6-3. I played him in day one, using I think the and there were like a there were like 25 Chien Paos in top eight. There were 16 in day two, so they were represented probably about as much as I expected, honestly. Um, but
Well,
uh, like I think every player that showed up with like a Chien Pao and a lot of physical attackers, it brought it for the reason primarily that they were planning to be good into balance.
Yeah, Aston apparently
and
counter team Talon Tusk, so it's a very strong team.
one of the things you mentioned
Um,
was uh, that Palance kind of struggles against hyper offense, and it's very. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
yeah, we can
Yeah.
Hello?
hear
Hello?
you at the end there as well, but yeah,
Okay. Okay.
and the stream is
So
back as well.
the stream is back. That's good. Yeah, I God don't know what's going on with
Okay,
the
I think we're
internet.
good.
So yeah, you can continue your point.
My mini like my thought process now. This is completely unfiltered, Audi team building insight. Not that I build good teams, but the you mentioned that Palance is pretty weak into hyper offense, and uh, I think that I think that Palafin traditionally really struggles with hyper offense, in that you have to take a turn to switch it out, and so it's prone to getting tempoed. You have to have a good defensive switch in, and you're not doing very much on that first turn. And then on the other hand, you also have you Tinglu, right? Tinglu is kind of is the other defensive tool that you really have. I mean, I guess Arcanum is too. But the point being, you said that it relies on Palafin to deal with hyper offense, and one of the reasons that I brought that up is because James Evans' team looks like it really tries to punish that as much as possible. You see the Garchomp as the offensive Pokemon of choice rather than something like a Great Tusk, which is traditionally stronger but is more weak to Palafin. So now this is a way that your hyper offensive dude can kind of power through it. You have the Iron Bundle as well, just to threaten Palatine. You have all of these tools just to really, really punish the reliance on Palatine and maybe Tinglu specifically to beat these hyper offensive teams. And I think that's a really cool way of approaching it. And I think that's maybe the way that hyper offensive teams should be looking to be built in the future.
I also want to just say that the response to this stuff is already right here in call with us. Running Iron Hands on the team is just going to give you a really nice matchup into a lot of the physical offense. I assume so. That was your experience. Is just Iron Hands.
Yes.
If they try to run a bunch of physical attackers into an Iron Hands with Arcstream support, they're going to have a bad time.
Yes, definitely. You just force a Terra on their Dragonite, and then Iron Hands just like took care of the rest of their team. Like there was a lot of situations where it's just Iron Hands just got all the 4 KOs because they just couldn't break through Iron Hands and Amoonguss a lot of the times. So it was, that was like,
yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No,
that was
no,
like definitely one more thing I was expecting to face a lot of Chi and Pa Dragonites. I was like, that's why like Iron Hands was just awesome in there. But
yeah, my response to physical spam is I just ran a ton of physical bulk on my Arcanine. And it was more of a band-aid than Sohaib's hard teching out the teams, but like it was just max HP, like 196 defense Arcanine, and that guy was also incredible into all the physical spam teams. And I also had Drain Punch on my Palafin, and I figured that would give me a puncher's chance in the offensive matchups. And I went like 3-2 against the Luca Lucignoli David Carrera team, which was just a bunch of physical mons. So I'm going to say that it did an adequate job at teching it out. Would have liked to have won my round 13 at 10-2, but it is what it is. Like they were trying to counter my team, and I went positive against it, and just 2-0 into 1-2. So, yeah.
On the note of Iron Hands, this kind of was like the Iron Hands tournament, right? Or at least this is kind of the first Reg C that showing that we've really seen out of it. Like even though we've only had I think 2 or 3 real tournaments, there was like quite a bit of ladder even before the format was like official, right? And it didn't seem like at the time that a lot of people were using Iron Hands, definitely because of new toy syndrome a bit, but yeah, honestly, it not only is just a good Pokemon, it's an excellent color synergy Pokemon. All the Iron Hands teams look so nice to look at, like aesthetically. So yeah, that just makes me happy.
yeah, that's one thing I noticed in our team building too. It's like we were like wondering like just Iron Hands just disappeared from the face of the earth, in Series C. It's like it's such a solid mon, and it's good into the dark types that were running around, and with Tinglu support, it's like nice into the GU Flirtavane type of teams, and it just seems so like odd that it's just one day it just disappeared from people's minds.
It's also probably pretty good in the mirror. I want
Yes.
your opinion on that as well, but like I know that one of my losses was just because they had an Assault S Terragrass Iron Hands that I didn't bring my Dragonite to, and I was kicking myself about it. But like, if you didn't have a way to just out grass types built into your team, you're probably gonna have a bad time. And if it was Excalibur, then you're gonna have a bad time. And if it was Roaring Moon, they got your Terra correct, then you're gonna have a bad time. And it's pretty efficient at crushing the mirror.
I
So
100% agree. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It gave us advantage in the mirror, made Chi and Pao a little bit easier. And surprisingly, so the Dozo team that emerged, it was pretty solid into the Dozo team too. The only reason, so I lost to Andrea, and he had Inner Focus Dragonite, which made like things a little bit more harder for me to beat. And but except that, it was just a really really solid mon overall. It was really strong into a lot of these teams. Even the David's team, David Carrier's team, I played 2 people using that team, and it's just the core of Arcanine and Moon's hands was amazing into it. Like you just have to be a little bit smarter with your positioning, but Amoonguss and Hands mostly just went crazy into that team.
Yeah. It also allows you to actually get your haze off of Palafin. So the the game plan at this tournament for Dondozo was Palafins are going to have haze, so we're gonna outspeed them and Terra Grass blast them. And if you have fake out, you can safely get the haze off, and they're gonna get sad. Iron Hands is bulky enough that it can like safely switch in, and you can after like fake out hazing, you can just go back to your Mungus and heal all the guys up, and just like generally have a good time with it. With a Dozo that's +0 and playing 1v2, and the Palm Puff is a broken move.
Oh
So
yes,
um,
100% agree.
yeah, we also saw a decent amount of Terra Grass Haze on teams without Iron Hands, and that's like okay for a bunch of reasons. I think that was the way to run. Like I do think it was the way to run Haze on your Palafin if you were not, if you didn't have fake out. Um, so like good on them. Um, I guess I'm just searching by Palafins that had Haze and also um, like 5 of the 16 Palafins in day 2 that had Haze had Iron Hands on their team. So it's like a pretty decent ratio, I guess. Um,
So a lot of them were just because I know Jim Audrey, he was building with me too. So at least three of them were just us
your team.
building it together. Yes.
Fair. There
So
was also Victor Medina, or is that Jay Madry?
oh no,
Or
Victor is I
no,
think
that's oh
tomorrow.
no, that's oh yeah, no, Jay Madry is Juan Manuel
Yeah.
Odriozola. Sorry. And then yeah, there was also Victor Medina who had oh he didn't have fake out on his Iron Hand side. He was Sword Sands detect safety goggles.
Yeah, he went all in, I think, into the mirror. He really teched out with the
Mhm.
mirror, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that was the set that I was running. I actually had fake out no protect, which is maybe a little questionable. But that was the team that I ran at Fort Wayne, not these six, but that set. And that set is absolutely like in my opinion, is one of the best things you can be doing into balance if you're not running balance itself, because uh, it's a little awkward in that sometimes you have to Terra Fire and then the Palafin pressures you, which is I guess the pin that
yeah,
Nils was talking about earlier.
that's
But
what
if
I
you
was
can
about to say.
preserve your
Right.
Amoonguss effectively, then a lot of times like the hands also threatens the Palafin, right? So like you preserve your Amoonguss, and then um, the hand they can't really hit the hands with any other Pokemon except for the Tinglu, which again is just kind of drain punch food. So you're also forcing their Terra out by setting up with your hands, and I do think it is like one of the best Pokemon. That is one of the best sets that you can have into the mirror.
Yeah, I think moving forward, having grass Palafin, and being able to like wave crash their Terrifier guy or just burn it, and then like uh just doing more powerful things while they're burned, is going to be a pretty effective way of dealing with that. And this is just the resilience of the team to respond to like counterplay. Is just it kind of does unfair things to the type chart, and so it's just yeah really tough to respond to. Like you get this guy that just walls the Arcanine and walls the Amoonguss, but Palafin can just show up and say, get out of here, and you have to get out of there. And um, yeah, I think it's just really pretty uh, like strong, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess there are some other cool teams in day 2. I don't know if anyone did extremely well. We talked a little bit about James Evans' team, and how it was, I think, pretty well positioned into the balanced cores. Of course, I think he lost to, who did he lose to? No, he lost to Joan. Never mind. He lost to the Njozo team in top 8. And you got to imagine that anyone who made it to top 8 in this tournament had a pretty good matchup into a lot of the Balancy type teams, just because there were so many of them in day 2 that they had to be playing a lot of them. Not necessarily, but probably. But I do like James Evans' approach. We haven't looked at Julio's team yet. I'm interested to see what he was doing. He did also have the Palafin Amoonguss Arcanine core, but instead of a Flutter main, he put a Goldengo on the team along with Chenpao Dragonite. Uh,
This
and
one's
one of
crazy. Just for having for dropping the Flutter main on Falcon Archer. I'm just gonna. You can continue talking. I'm gonna look and see how many Arcanine, Among Us, Palafin teams didn't have Flutter main. Okay, there were three of them that dropped Flutter main in day two. Yeah, it was Julio. Uh, I'm just trying to quickly skim through. This is amazing content. Um,
mhm.
there's
Well,
I'm going down into the top 64, and he's the only one so far. There's Nicolo Polacco, who had Iron Hands, Dragonite, Chien-Pao, and then there was I think I missed one scrolling at some point. Yeah,
uh,
but yeah,
but I mean, my main takeaway, one of the things that I think was really impressive about this tournament, or what interesting about this tournament, was Goldengo was three of the top eight slots. Of course, none of those three teams had a Flutter main on it, and in a metagame where it feels like 80%, well, literally almost 80% of teams have a Flutter main on it. Goldengo is kind of well positioned into those teams, and we saw a lot of people try to, or at least it only got 10 usages in top 128, but three of those players top cut, so it had a pretty insane conversion rate for players who are trying to maybe counter the prominence of Flutter main and use a Pokemon that really heavily threatens it, really heavily threatens Amoonguss. Not so much the dark types like Tinglu, Kingambit, Roaring Moon, etc., but not so much Arcanine. But still, I think a Pokemon that is a little underutilized going into this tournament and really popped off this tournament.
yeah. Terra Water Goldengo is another one of those Pokemon that can do really nicely into Arc Shroom Palafin. And Julio notably was Thunderbolt on his Goldengo, which was something I considered and then didn't seriously test. It was just like one of the things that I thought could be cool, and I didn't get time to test before the tournament. And so, like, I'm not really surprised to see it show up. Um, but yeah, it just kind of shreds the core, and so it just like makes the rest of the team respond to it, and then you have uh, like Palafin to bully Tinglu if that's their response to it, and like Amoonguss can bully Tinglu, of course. Um, and yeah, it just is also doing the powerful Fire Water Grass things. There's a Lumberry Dragonite along with Howl Arcanine, which is similar to what I had as well. And then Chien-Pao can show up after Dragon Dancing. Yeah, Julio's team is cool. Citrus Berry and Goldengo, a little bit unorthodox. You usually would see that on Among Us, but again, just setting a Shroomer on the board and saying you have to Flare Blitz me twice if you want to get through me is probably pretty good. Just like
I,
core for the
I could
Goldengo.
also see it being for like Chi-Yu, like maybe like Chi-Yu Flutter Maid he found just like
That's
out and
also
annoying.
super fair. Yeah, like being able to set an Among Us in front of the Chi Flutter is a response to that. Like my response to it was have AV on the Dragonite and just like blow up the Flutter or the Chi, depending on how I'm feeling on the day. But yeah, Akka Shroom allows you to Dragon Dance with your Dragonite, and like just it's different lines, solutions to the same problem, and he was causing different problems. But like honestly, he was his Steel type was still just um, uh, like trying to farm the mirror, uh, just in slightly different ways. And his Chien-Pao is comparable to my Flutter Mane, in that it's a 135 speed bond that doesn't take hits super well, but uh, I realize this isn't the most useful content for everyone else that I'm comparing his team directly to mine, but it's like um, it's my perspective on it, and it's easy analysis to do. So yeah, cool team, Julia. We had the same Arcanine side as well. So um, like howling for your Dragonite and your Palafin was a synergy that I liked a lot, and it's cool to see that GLO also identified that. Howling for your Chien-Pao sounds pretty broken too. So yeah, that's my take on Julia's team.
We could also talk about Paul Ruiz's team a bit because he finally put Annihilate on the map. Eat shit, Jody. Get hooked. Um,
This is
it
not
was
the first
not
time
fake.
Annihilate has gotten top 8 at an internet, just so you know.
But
So
yeah, it's finally here.
um, it's important to note that in day two there were exactly two annihilates. Um, and so Paul Ruiz was living his best life. He was living the dream of every annihilate player. He managed to smuggle an annihilate into top eight at an internets where it had no business showing up. And then he promptly got shown the door in top eight. I think by talents, no less.
By a Gotti, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I mean, he got
he,
bodied by a Gotti. It was not close.
yeah. And that's
Um,
that's the issue, right?
and so
Um,
for what it's worth, he also had the Terrawater Goldengo, which was sort of the Palant answer, which seems a little strange to me because I thought the entire point of running Mouse Ape was that it's supposed to be really good into balance where they don't, or at least okay, it's supposed to be really good into balance, except for when they lead very specifically into you, and I guess that's where the Goldengo comes in, forcing those very specific
yeah.
leads. I did just look it up, and this is 5 of the same 6 Pokemon that Hari used to get top 8 at Oceania Internats, where he had a Sylveon instead of the Goldengo. And the Sylveon, has this very similar idea where you can lead it with Mouse Hold, and it exerts a lot of pressure and is very, very tough to power through when you have Friend Guard with it. So, yeah. Also, Chase this weekend let me know that I had built this exact same team and beat him at a local with it, except I had a Grimmsnarl over the Roaring Moon, way back in Series 2 as well. So this is, I mean, literally a Series 2 Mouse Ape team that maybe is a little better positioned, is teched out certainly for a Series
For
3.
sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like people were talking about Mouse Ape as this balanced counterplay, and we saw, especially with Gotti, the way he played it, that he still has very powerful lines into it.
I think that goes to Nails' point of like maybe the misconception that Balance is a defensive team, and where Nails was arguing that it's actually an offensive team. And so, like historically, Annihilate has struggled pretty hard with like heavy offense, and the Balance core like definitely has that mode that they can opt into. But just like we saw, God, he just lead like Flutter Palafin, and then you just kind of click on so one. So
Yep. Yeah, I strongly agree with everything being discussed. It's um you so the like traditionally offense is weaker to faster offense. That's how you can beat offense. And if we approach Palafin stuff balance as an offensive team, this lines up with a lot of the top performing teams that were not just straight running Palance. Is they were trying to push offense through the team that lined up well. Like there were like just pure defensive teams were very uncommon. There was only one Woshian in day two, and that was Megan Rattle, who went 8-4. Um, there like other common defensive Pokemon, Garganacl. There was only one in day two, and that was Raga of Malavia, who went 8-6. Um, just like pure defensive stuff has been completely squeezed out of the format, which is a little bit surprising considering the takes at the start of the format that it's like super defensive. Uh, just people not like knowing how to respond to like Woshian. The way that you respond to it is you let meta pressures do it. Just they're and like most notably, I just think Palance can squeeze the life out of defensive stuff. Um, Specifically, like Howl Arc. I played against Raghav in day two, and the way that matchup played out, like his team isn't even. It's relatively defensive. Um, so what I did, in game one, I led Arcanine King Gambit against his Amoonguss and Garganacl, and I clicked Howl on the first three turns of the game, and I started Kowtow cleaving, and his team got chopped. And that's like the type of pressure that you can put out that just shreds balance without. I mean, like it's it's a reasonable amount of like team resources that I invested to just put it, but like it just got shredded by Hallmark. because it couldn't. His team, at least the mode that he brought, couldn't pressure adequately enough, and just yeah, it was yeah,
Hmm.
the like pure defensive teams just uh, don't really exist in the format right now. And that's not to say that they can't. They just have to look different than what we're seeing right now from, I guess,
It's,
the lack of defensive teams
I mean,
that showed up.
it's always going to be an uphill battle for pure defense in VGC. It never really existed, um, outside of like maybe what you would call chancy teams in 2017 or 2018 rather. I don't think like
Yeah.
hyper defense has ever existed, or stall has ever existed, and this was maybe the
Um,
best chance for it too. And it hasn't done too well.
I think that defensive teams in Series 1 very reasonably could exist. Like you could have more defensive Arcanine sets, um, and Amogus, and you could do I had an early Series 1 result with like Arcanine Gyarados, uh, Charm Gothitelle. I don't know if I've ever actually publicly revealed that, but the Gothitelle in my Victory Road Tour team was Charm, and was just trying to sit in front of Dondozo or lock anything else that wanted to show up really, and just like Charm lock it and do Pollen Puff Goth Trim things, and that was cool, um, and just like even Ruination and Tinglu, like Tinglu's the flavor of Mon that Balance usually would like to see, because it's just kind of a deer with a bull on its head, and it just like sits there, or a horse or whatever. I don't know. But it just like gets to click ruination and deal strong damage and set things up for kills. And so, um, when that guy is like the defensive backbone against offense, and it also still just kind of shreds defensive comps, you don't have much room to like uh, play defensive stuff. Woshian is like carrying the torch for defense and trying to leech seed its way through everything, but it's awkward. I think there was a parish that did okay as well, actually. So
Hmm.
maybe that's the way forward. Um, I guess we can lead. That's a pretty good lead into talking about that person's team, right? I know that there was a
Yeah,
parish that
yeah.
did well. Um,
There what, or at
okay.
least Juanma was running Parish, got top
Yeah,
64. There's some cool teams that we could talk about in day two. That didn't go too far, but at least made day two. This is one of them. This is hard Parish. There might have been a second one. Um,
there was one more
this
parish song. Fevzi had it and went 9-5.
okay.
This team is awesome
So
because it's Wolf's team, but with a Ting Lu. It just works.
and
Yeah,
for what it's worth, this does seem like it does pretty well into pallets. Um, they
yeah, probably. Did.
like they do need to. They can't switch out the Palafin. They're not running flip turn that often. There was like one or two running flip turn, and so it is really hard for them to abuse that pressure. The Flutter main kind of has to be led, but if you lead it to Tinglu, then it's in a really awkward slot, and everything else kind of just gets trapped. And so you can do
Um,
something even like lead Screamtail Tinglu, where like good luck taking a KO, and you Palafin lead does punish that, but you're forced to make that call correctly, and you threaten both a heavy slam into the Flutter main and also a switch out into Gothitelle and Perish Song, and it's really hard to cover both options. And so I wouldn't say that it has like a fantastic matchup into it, but uh, it's got a lot of lines that other teams can't really take advantage of.
yeah, yeah. It's okay. I'll say that the only flip turn Palafin in top 128 was Anush, and he was running weak armor flip turning with his Palafin. So like flip turn just on um like pallets completely is out of there. I had it on my original draft of the team to respond to stuff like this and also just to like reposition, but I people yelled at me for it, and so I cut it for Drain Punch, and they were very correct to yell at me for it. It just wasn't especially good in testing. Um, so uh, like yeah, Gothitelle, we legitimately might see Gothitelle paired with some teams that or some Pokemon that don't love looking at a Palafin, uh, and like that could be a decent uh, like way to like capitalize on just talents. But
Hmm.
again, like you still have to respond to Flutter main plus whatever evil offensive ideas they had on the day to pair next to their Flutter main. And so responding to various Flutter comps is going to be an issue for sure. But if you solve that, then yeah, it can you can get a lot of uh, value.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Um,
cool team 1 minute roll.
right.
And this is also Paris that has like enough defensive tools to probably get there into offense, which is usually a pretty you like have some of your team real estate that's uh, dedicated to just the parish mode, and then you have like so much real estate left to respond to the rest of the meta, and um, it's like can be tough
Yeah.
to fit in check for everything.
I mean, you
But
look
they did
at
a good job.
the team that Nails and I used at Orlando, the team that Justin Tang won Knoxville with as like the semi-parish teams, and especially given the success of Juan's team here, can definitely see that sort of coming back to life. At least forcing a lot of very difficult decisions out of a Palance player. I guess the tough part is probably dealing with all of the powerful offensive threats that Chen Pao and Chi Yu enable, where all of a sudden now Parrish has to kind of survive that onslaught, which is a little harder. And so I guess talking about some of the other cool teams, there was one that I wanted to talk about that I had pulled up a second ago. Um, there was a solo dozo. There were actually yeah, okay, there were a couple solo. No, there's only one. One yawn dozo that made it to day two. Alejandro Trastoy, I think. Nails.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on this team because this is very reminiscent of your team. They did make some changes, but very reminiscent of your Fort Wayne team.
Yeah, so for Smogon fans in the audience, this is Trosco. He's a longtime Smogon vet and a good friend of mine. We won SPL 9 together on the Wolfpack. He's my boy. I hung out with him a bunch on day two, and he was like, "Yeah, I loaded up your team from Fort Wayne. I made some changes, and the changes are pretty cool overall." I can tell you from what we said that he said that Chiyu wasn't amazing on the team. It was on the team to try to respond to balance. And it's like the classic Terra Water guy that like Terra Water boosters generally do line up pretty well into balance. But it um otherwise it's like largely the same core. He made the Flutter main special attack boosting and said that he missed out on having the Icy Wind synergy and would have gone back to speed boosting, I think. Um, he mentioned that he wanted to drop Shadow Ball for taunt, um, which I think moving forward is actually like really nifty and like more people should probably be trying that out. Like you can taunt the Amoonguss, which is what everyone thinks of as a taunt. Welcome back.
Yay.
Yeah.
Welcome
Hello,
back to the
hello.
channel.
Okay.
So, stream is gonna load back up. I guess should I start talking or should I wait for it? But I can
You're
finish.
good. You're good.
Okay, we're there. Cool. Yeah. So he added an Among Us to the team, which like I'd messed around with a little bit before, um, Fort Wayne, but we couldn't make everything stable. The most interesting thing he did was he put Curse on Dondozo, and it could just it had Unaware instead of Water Veil, um, and he just could like um, like set up with it, and apparently he beat opposing Dozo with it. Uh, Perhaps he caught some of the Oblivious Dozo and then just started cursing up against them, and was able to punch through them with that. Um, I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it, but Like,
Mhm.
yeah, he went 9-5 with like a revamped version of my Fort Wayne team, and he's a homie. So yeah, shout out to Trusca.
Yeah, definitely one of the cooler teams to do well. Abhay, Sohaib, did you have any teams that you wanted to highlight from day two?
I'll give it to Sohaib first. It's Sohaib hasn't talked in a minute.
Mm, The one team that comes to my mind is I think his name was Paggy. He had basically balanced score with Donoso stuff. That was a pretty interesting team that uh, I found that pretty cool. I don't know how they finished though, but
It
I
finished
played
nine
them
five. It
What
looks
what
like
9-5. Okay.
what's their name?
Pagano is the last name.
Yes, Pagano, yes.
Okay.
Andrea
So yeah,
Pagano.
yes, the taunt Tatsugiri was really really annoying with Lumperi. It's like it made Among Us's life pretty hard. So except that everything else that I played against was pretty standard.
Hmm. I mean, really pushing the limits of you could put Arcanine, Amogus, Palathin, Fluttermane next to literally anything.
We did have David Kutosh sighting at the tournament. So
He did.
um,
We talked about
yeah.
this on stream. We covered his Orthworm match. We've also played Orthworm on stream with Alex using it in the last GC. So there's lots of Orthworm content on Top Nation if you're looking for it. But he posted his pace publicly. Definitely a cool take on it. And got a lot of hype. Ray Rizzo posted a video saying Orthworm is suddenly good. So I think we're going to see a lot more Orthworm in the future, at least from, maybe on the ladder. But I do
So
think it's a
is
legitimate
he
Pokemon, and I've talked about it at length.
I guess like the one like kind of notable variation was that he put Iron Defense on his Earthworm, which like ended up winning him one of his games against Alberto, I think, where he just like put it in front of a Corviknight and clicked like Iron Defense a ton of times and said, "Okay, you can't kill me. I can't kill you. I'm just gonna like keep body pressing until you run out of roost." And then,
Or
so
until you
yeah,
roost into body press and give me double
He
damage.
Well,
Like,
so what happened was the Orthworm was paralyzed, and Alberto was just like kept waiting for a full paralysis because he kept roosting and it kept doing like just over half because he'd bulked up a bunch, or just under half, like around half, and he got 7 out. I think he got all 8 body presses off without getting fully paralyzed, or 8 body presses off or 7 body presses off consecutively without getting paralyzed, and he ran out of roost BP. Whereas I think one paralysis would have gotten him there. So Alberto kind of low rolled that, but that said, I did break it down on the channel. I was very upset at how Kutash played it. I thought that he played game 3, I think, pretty poorly. But other than that, yeah, he did a great showcase of what Orthworm could do. Putting the Choice Band Tinglu, that's not something that we had next to it either. I do like Iron Defense a lot. It makes Orthworm on its own a pretty solid punish into a lot of the bulkier teams that are relying on dark types to beat this. And then it's got a niche. It's got a base 145 defense stat and iron defense, and so the Paladins teams that have 5 physical attackers are going to have a really tough time powering through it. If you want to Amoongus through it, you've got the threat of clicking Shed Tail, so you just get to not get spored. And the Fluttermane gets threatened by Heavy Slam, so it does actually do very well into the Paladins core. And Kutesh, I think he said he went 6-0 against it at EUIC in his Twitter, so definitely has a niche there.
also, what the hell? Why does the Fluttermane not have Shadow Ball? I guess it's like a Kutesh decision of like he
He
definitely does
only
some weird
has one
stuff.
way to status it, which is Thunder Wave. So I don't actually know why. I feel like it's just supposed to have Shadow Ball.
that's my opinion as well. Kutesh, his teams are out there, and usually they're more correct than not correct. But there's there's a little bit of a head scratcher on this one.
I don't know. I'll just trust that he knows more than I do about because Kutesh is definitely like a ladder spammer. Like he always tweets about how he like got like how something that happened to him on ladder or like the weirdest stuff that he's played. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
assume after he got to like his 501st game on ladder, he was like, wait a minute, I never click Shadow Ball or unless their Pokemon is Thunder Waved. So Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do think
I
that
actually
the
in my
choice band
opinion.
Tinglu is very cool on the team.
like,
That's something that we did not have, but getting to do real damage with Earthquake is sick. It's just it genuinely does damage. Rock Slide's a really powerful move sometimes, and I think the Tinglu does need the boosting item to like really capitalize on it. And when we were testing this team, it was really struggling against Talonflame stuff. So Tinglu actually going Talonflame seems really valuable. So I think
The,
that's a cool tech as well.
it's also worth noting that this is the one Tinglu in top 128 that is not packing Heavy Slam.
Well, why would you? You can
Every
just
other,
Earthquake through it, and you have a
yeah,
Heavy Slam user next
yeah,
to it.
yeah, exactly. Like this is the type of team that or this is the level of justification you need to uh, not pack Heavy Slam on your Tinglu is you need basically to be choice banned next to an Earthworm. Every other guy needed Heavy Slam, and it was correct for them because Flutter's good.
Hmm.
Yeah, like I'm not saying you should have had Heavy Slam, just that um, everyone else should have, and they did.
And they did, or they didn't, but they didn't do well. So you know.
It's also true.
All right, Abhay, your turn. You got one team. Pick your favorite team in top MAD2.
Oh, Orthworm was my team. Let me try to find it.
Oh,
There's
okay.
probably some cool ones. Oh, I did. I think what's his name? Sean Martens. I know Nails has like worked with him a little bit as well. He is a
Yeah,
Dutch player. He's cool. I'm like in a server with him as well. I really like him. He's a cool guy. He had a pretty cool team. It was or it was essentially he brought Jody's team. Maybe with some like
Okay,
small
how do you
changes or
spell his
something
name?
like that. But
I'll try to
if
find
you
it.
search Sean,
Sean Martins,
Sean.
Martins with an E.
Okay.
this isn't like necessarily like a notable team in the context of like it being new, but I just think it's notable at least just to like see how it like did in this atmosphere versus how it did like when it first came out and like how people ended up adjusting to it and how he might have tried to play it. I also
Wait,
just
isn't
wanted to
this
shout out
just
my friend.
Jody's team?
Yeah, it is just Jody's team, so I just wanted to shout out my friend.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So
Shout out to Sean 51.
with
Um,
that,
oh,
um, go
I
ahead.
want to shout out to Megan Rattle, who finished 8-4, but notably did not just dropped at 8-4. I'm assuming in part because she wanted to just explore London and have a fun day. But also once she hit 8-4, she probably identified that she had decent enough resistance and could only hurt her tournament performance by playing more Pokemon. She wasn't going to get top 32 if she kept playing, and if she lost to some more people in the 8X bracket, like 8-5, 8-4, and 8-5, she would like potentially lower her resistance and um, just do worse. So she finished as the top 8X player just by dipping after round 12 and managed to secure her top 128 or top 64 instead of top 128.
Top
So a
64.
good
Yeah.
tournament, yeah, good
That's
I'm
tournament
sorry.
that's really
strategy
smart.
from
I think more
Megan.
people should do that, honestly. Like it genuinely is the right play a lot of times.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's the right play from your tournament life perspective, and also the right play from just like you get to enjoy your vacation. Like looking at the 10-4s, there were like eight 10-4 players who did not make top 32, and there were like counting 12 10-4s. So like 12 out of 20 the 10-4s made top 32. But if you're going 8-4 to 10-4, that's probably not going to be you. So yeah, Megan from like payouts perspective just had nothing to play for and something to lose, and just bravo Megan for good tournament strategy.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Playing.
Um, I know we've been talking about this tournament for like an hour and a half, so we kind of need to move on, but I'm unshouting out Sean Martens. I'm sorry, because the Surf Dozo guy, Pablo, this is the team. This is my team. This team is so funny. It is
You can shout
the
out
This team
Marvel
funniest
first.
team. This
it
is one of the
played
funniest teams
Cybertron
I've ever seen.
in the win in for day 2 on stream, and it got to showcase exactly how powerful Surf Dozo is. It did two shot an Amoonguss through Citrus Berry. It also crit the Amoonguss twice, so you know, still a two shot. Um,
This team rules. This is the coolest team in the tournament. This like, as far as I'm concerned, Pablo won the tournament just like off of like style points.
He
Also, I guess there are
apparently
like randomly like a few Pelipper in Top Gun. And this was like randomly a Pelipper, which also was like pretty funny. So yeah, this team's awesome.
in his interview he said it started out as a mono water team, uh, which is also just super based. Um, so yeah,
I
It's
can
almost like a
confirm that.
mono blue team, almost.
we playing Magic now.
Yeah.
We're
Yo.
playing Wacko World
Uh,
Tour actually. We're playing purple, almost.
Uh,
uh,
basically,
all
so
right.
like we've got a lot of blue Pokemon, and Dondozo can't switch or be forced to switch out after it sets up. So it's basically just blue lock. I think that's a thing that people care about right now.
Okay. So, with that, that is excuse me. That is going to wrap up our discussion of EUIC. Honestly, I hope you guys enjoyed us talking about all the teams that did well and their impact on the metagame. But the next thing we want to talk about is how I pissed off all the Italians in the community by pointing out that the number one ranked European player has less CP than the eighth ranked American player, which is only relevant because North America gets 8 day 2 invites and EU gets 16 for some odd reason. And you can see I've pulled up the global championship point ranks. Of the top 9, 8 are North Americans, and then of course Agati, who has been killing it at every event he attended. And so this isn't okay. So here's my tweet. Obviously, a little bit incendiary to kick things off, but the main point is that I really do think it's silly that that Americans who are doing well enough to have a Worlds invite at this point in the season have no reason to continue playing. I think that, and obviously, like I'm talking about me because I have 300 points, 330 the with
Global Challenge.
the global challenge points added in. But I am about 330 points short of being in the day 2 race as well, because you can see it's 680 right now as the cutoff bar, whereas in Europe the cutoff bar is 330 right now because they get 216 day 2 invites. And so my friend Roxon Antonio, he was saying, I got 310 championship points after getting top 128 at a UIC, and so like I'm in the day 2 race, I'm gonna keep fighting for it. And I was like, man, I wish that at this point in the season I had something to play for. And I think there's a lot of people who are in a similar spot as I am. I know Sohaib's another person who, at like 400 CP, I think, not in the day 2 race at all. Justin Tang has like 460 CP or something. Won 2 regionals, not in the day 2 race. And it's really frustrating to me that these late season regionals, especially in North America, are just not going to be seeing a lot of really, really good players attend just because we really have no reason to attend. And so that was the kind of the that was what I was saying in the second tweet, that it is just objectively good for the circuit for play Pokemon if they expand the number of day 2 slots. On top of the fact that NA is right at the moment the most competitive region in the world. So that was that's my justification for the tweet that I put out that got a lot of engagement, a lot of people talking about it. 3
Yeah.
bookmarks, which means 3 people are saving this for when NA bombs NAIC. I see that.
Okay, that's a great use of the bookmark feature. Yeah. Um, my first thing to say about this is Adi, fantastic engagement farming on this. Mwah. 10 out of 10. Just this is like every time it's just gonna piss off the Europeans. Guaranteed. 32K views. Did a great job on this one. Um, uh, as a North American in the day 2 race, I am uh, personally in favor of having more slots. Um, the race is really really stupid this year. Like Americans definitely have more regionals than Europeans, but also we just yoinked to first place. Shout out to Luca Paz for invading Liverpool successfully and teaching him how to play Dozo in Series 1. That was good. Uh, but yeah, just like the North American race is stupid. I'm at 690 and I'm just
like barely squeaked into top eight because I've gone to both of the internets, and like day two both. I've day two both of the internets, and I've cut two regionals, and so yeah, that's like the seventh best season in North America, and like the the top three in the standings is just people who made an internet's finals, and then we
God,
have
howdy.
to run this back. Okay, so I have done. No, I'm joking. No, the basically just um like Wolf outside looking in because he hasn't attended either internets, but like disgustingly stupid season from disgustingly consistent season from Wolf. Uh, um, like Luca obviously invaded an internet or invaded a regional, um, and then cut two more and had like there's um, it's it's stupid participating in the NAJ2 race this season. This where uh
Yeah,
dude, what's up with Austin today?
right? Mad at
I
some takes.
I swear it's my internet provider throttling me. Everyone, go yell at Google for not letting you enjoy Tub Takes. Um, Google Fiber is not everything that it's cracked up to be. Don't listen to the propaganda. If any other internet company wants to sponsor me, hit me up. We'll do a whole big thing about how you're way better than Google. We'll do a whole stream just celebrating you. Um,
Has gone to three tournaments, won two of them, with like 700 player fields, and he's just like chilling at 14th right now. Like, um, he's Justin Tang actually has the most prize money from, or he's tied with Balchua um, from North American events, which is you could argue that he like got lucky in one of them, but I don't know. Like, um, just there's so many people who have a plausible case for like I should be in the day two race, and they're just chilling out like in like top 20, I guess like
mhm,
top 15, but
right. And I mean, if you look at, I don't know, like Luca Tragut has had a crazy run. He got top four at back-to-back regionals. He's at number 16. Think about how much more competitive this would be if it was a top 16 race. Yeah, like a lot of the people in top eight are pretty safe. They'd still have to go to the events. They'd still have to go to NAIC at least to solidify their position. But then every 16th is 410. If you have 300 championship points and you have regional finishes left to spare, you can absolutely go to a couple events and get up to that number. Like Sohaib at 400 would definitely be traveling to every event possible, trying to get that day two invite. Even me, I'm down to 330 once you count the GC. I'd be going to events trying to fight that. You'd see like Alex Underhill, I think Chungjun said he would be traveling to events. Someone like Ashton would be going to events. James Beck, right? It's like all these big names that you hope to see at events, I think would suddenly be attending way more regionals just because they have a chance at day two with an expanded day two race. And instead, I think a lot of us are just going to be sitting at home twiddling our thumbs until August. I mean, we'll go to internets because it's fun, but a lot of us are going to be twiddling our thumbs unless there's a regional right next door to us, like in Sohab's case with Hartford, where and you just have nothing to play for, nothing to take super super seriously, and it's just a very frustrating system to be part of.
Yeah, I feel like it just like boils down fundamentally where like we really just want to see more good players be motivated to play the game, and North America has a lot of good players that they just lost the motivation because they don't have to. They got what they needed out of the season. And so to me at least like it's not really like a comparison. Like Europe is just like the comparison because they have the most slots, but like it's not talking down on EU or saying like they don't deserve 16 slots or anything like that. Because like if EU had 8 slots, there would be a similar argument, right? Like you want the best European players to be motivated to play the game for as long as possible. So just similarly, at least to me with North America, it's just you just want more players who are good at the game to play it.
Yeah, and like the NA versus EU stuff is cyclical. NA is currently the region that has the awesome results in 2019. Europe was crushing it, and so like the yeah, this basically just this stuff is all cyclical, and there's like a decent amount of variance just based on like small sample size tournaments. Like so it's just the regions are relatively even, and if you just like look at historical data, and there shouldn't be that big of a disparity between the two regions. Um, I
They're
have
both
like some structural changes that we could do, but go ahead.
they're both
Have
worse
more
than
to say?
Agati for the most part anyway, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean that's never been in doubt. So yeah, it just is what it is.
Um,
Yeah, like, just wanted to say, Adi, you're 100% right. Like, I was looking at flights for Portland, and they're not even that expensive. And the fact that it's just, I was like, what's the point, right? Like, if I go, it's like, it's not
I-
getting me anything really.
If you win the tournament, congrats. That puts you in like 11th place before anyone else gets
Exactly.
points.
Exactly, yes. And, but one thing that's making me happy about not having 16 slots is that if you had 16 slots, I would be bubbling that right now. So that gives
Oh
me
no.
happiness in that sense that we don't have 16 slots because I cannot bubble day two for
I
the
mean,
millionth time.
okay. On that note, I was just pulling this up on stream.
Wait,
Who are the players who just missed out on day two? Nails, I saw you got ninth once. Um, Alex got 10th and 11th in back-to-back years. Uh, so, I mean, that's the other thing that I dislike, is that if you get to 900 championship points, you have had a incredibly successful season, just by every metric. You did really really well, and I do think that you should be rewarded for that. I didn't look at the EU bar in those years, but I guess I should before I comment too much. Okay, so I guess EU also has a similarly competitive. Wow, Lucas missed by 1 championship point. That's brutal. Anyways, you, I don't know if like adding extra slots makes it more forgiving, but it means that fewer incredible seasons are going to be left with nothing to show for it. The solution that I had that I talked about on stream over last Sunday or Saturday, I think, was that we should have buys at Worlds, and every 150 points
Yeah.
extra that you get in over the championship point bar should give you a buy. Let's say maximum of 4. This means that you have incentive to continue playing no matter what the day 2 bar is, and an incredible season that gets you in 9th place means that you are still very likely to make day 2 Worlds. But day 2 Worlds is still a very big leg up in that you don't have to play, you don't have to reveal your team on the previous day, and you also don't have to go 2-2 against some of the best players in the world to actually make it to the next stage. The other problem with that is that it doesn't work for Japan, because Japan has a very different system, and they wouldn't have a great way of allocating buys. So the secondary solution that I had was we should just have 8 players from NA, 8 players from EU get day 2 invites, and then 16 players from both those regions on top of that get 3-round buys at Worlds, along with 16 players from Japan and some number of buys from the rest of the world as well for each region. And that way, a 3-round buy isn't guaranteeing you day 2 Worlds. It's still very competitive. You still have to do fairly well, but it is a pretty decent consolation prize, and it would, 24 slots. You can look at the standings. 24 slots would really incentivize a lot of people to continue playing. but also would make it so it's a little bit more forgiving if you do miss out on day two worlds just by a hair.
Sure. Um, I wanted to talk about the structural issues of like championship points, and just BFLs a little bit, like, uh, which was kind of last segment, but I'm gonna hit on it anyways. I think that just an internet BFL of two is like would be really good for the circuit. Just in incentivizing the middle tier of players to just like the current system is trying to tell everyone to go to everything, which I mean it's understandable from Pokemon's perspective, but it's not realistic at this point in the game's life. Maybe it is in 5 to 10 years, and they're just like having this system established of if you want to chase day two, you kind of have to like wall warrior the internets, but I don't like that system, and I wish that it wasn't such. Um, but aside from that, yeah, like internets BFL of two would be good, and then the regionals. Because we had a truncated season, we shouldn't have a six BFL limit for this season. Even five would just go a long way into making the system more fair. But like four is probably too far. You want people playing more than four tournaments, but like just because we had a shortened season, we probably shouldn't have the same BFL as TCG for regionals. I'm pretty sure we have a different BFL. I'm checking that right now, but
No, I'm pretty sure they're both
um,
six.
yeah, they're both at six, and yeah, VG just should have like -1 probably.
Um, yeah, no, I think that's a pretty reasonable. I think that it makes it harder to make day one worlds, especially for players who are getting consistently like slightly above average results. If Austin is
Well,
still
yeah,
in
but
chat, I'm
we
gonna roast him real quick because
we have
he's gotten 40 championship points at four straight regionals, and I was joking with him that he's just consistent enough to get to 280 championship or 240 championship points. Um, but uh, but yeah,
and
no, I
I
mean
mean like
it makes it a little
high
tougher to make worlds
high
off
key. That's
of.
actually what they're trying to target. Like with they're bringing locals back, and you have global challenges, and
Mhm.
if that's not quite enough, you have like internets, and you can get 100 points from that or whatever. Um, and like
Right.
that's the system they're trying to set up. So
Yes.
um,
And realistically, I mean, it's sort of unprecedented because we never had regionals this big. We're not used to regionals awarding top 128 championship points and having top 128 potentially mean that you made day two and like had a crazy good run with 7-2 in day one. Um, it's really rough that you can do that well and only get 40 points. And so in the past, like I know I'm my first Worlds invite in 2018, no 2019. I got one regional finish, and I was doing the math because we had a full season of locals, and I was like, okay, I only need one regional finish, and I'm guaranteed to get it. In 2022, I had regional finishes, but I also got 400 championship points from just locals and online tournaments. Um, and so the math changes so much when you don't have locals, and you do need to go to a lot more regionals. That it can be hard if you aren't a player of Nails' caliber or Sohaib's caliber to make worlds. If you don't, one, go to internets and do well at internets. That's the huge thing for everyone. But also, you can make day two at a bunch of events and potentially miss worlds if the BFL is too low. Um, and that maybe speaks to the regional payouts and how that should be changed as well. But also, I think that's part of why the BFL is a little higher and is okay. I'm okay with it being a little higher.
sure, yeah. Like I'm not trying to drop it too far. Just um, yeah, it's like fine.
All right, Abhay,
And
I want to hear your take. I know you've got a take. This is top takes. If you don't have a take, why are you here?
Oh, okay, so I guess with this my take, I don't really think about CPE all that much since like I haven't really been going to many events. Like I've actually only been to NAIC last year. So at least from my perspective as like someone who just like doesn't really have the time to really go to a lot of these events, like a lot of like the discussion, like for example, of like BFLs or like okay, so maybe this can go to the discussion of like say like locals come right since that's coming around the corner in May, and a lot of what I've seen from people is, or at least initially, were people being worried about like local CP counting towards like day two race and things like that. And as a result, maybe not wanting locals. That feels pretty stupid, at least in my opinion, in terms of the whole concept of like not wanting locals, or because at least for me, like those are primarily opportunities just to make friends in a similar community, and at least without those bases, yeah, I just don't see how like the Pokemon community could survive without that space. And so at least that's how I can at least like connect to this conversation, is just much more from like a local kind of like grassroots perspective.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The grown-up version of the locals shouldn't come back for the day two races. They just shouldn't count for the day two race. Um, and that's still not like it's still a little bit of a problematic take, but I think it's better than like locals counting for day two. But yeah, I think that everyone who says local shouldn't count for day two is like it's just too extreme of a take. I get where they're coming from, but it's or I think I misspoke. Everyone who says locals shouldn't come back because of day two. That's the clown take. Locals, I do think locals shouldn't count for day two because it just um, incentivizes like chasing points in an unhealthy manner and just trying to stack your BFL with a bunch of wins. Um, and you get people like me driving 4 hours to go to Chicago and Toronto and Ohio and everywhere just to like uh, like take locals points from people because that's what you have to do to keep up in the day two race, and
Well,
that bit is
you were
stupid.
also
But
doing that for the travel award, right? Like,
yeah,
if the BFL was six, you could get six locals done in a couple of months and then just sit on your hands.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I do think that local not counting for stipend chase. That's just like a massive quality of life for the stipend chasers, and I think for everyone else because I don't think it's fun for people to just have like one or two stipend chasers come in and try hard their locals when they're trying to like play not the most serious meta optimal teams. They're trying to win, but they're trying to also enjoy the game, experience that in a fun way, and like maybe you're more comfortable bringing Orthworm to a local instead of an international. And like Orthworm is meta viable at the highest level, but maybe you're not comfortable with that and you want to try it out before your regional. And so like a local is a great way to like try that out. Because sometimes your Orthworm like equivalent from a different meta is not like peak meta viable. Like uh then just you uh yeah, it's I think it creates a better experience if locals aren't part of the chase. And I, I'm also going to argue for day two, that the local shouldn't count for day two, but I feel less strongly about that than just the stipend chase.
I
Yeah,
feel
just like the
like
day two like thing with locals, it just feels like it applies to maybe like 30 people in the world, maybe. So it's just like,
It
at
does.
least for like for me, it's just like okay, I it's like kind of like I just want to play the game.
I think that locals. I don't even mind locals for day two because, like I said, you can get your six midseason finishes, and you might not win six midseasons, but you'll get, most of your points from midseasons, and you can do that pretty reasonably. Even if you only have one local around you, if you're doing consistently well at regionals and at internets, you can go to six midseasons and probably do pretty okay, especially if midseasons come back after regionals. The thing that frustrates me is they count for travel awards, which means that they don't have a significant BFL best finish limit, and as a result, you can go to six midseason showdowns in the span of 3 months and potentially get a free trip to Australia that way, and that is really frustrating because that means that players who live in areas with a lot of locals or easier locals have a much easier time getting these free trips, and the free trips make it not cost prohibitive to actually chase a day two invite, and that's why you see if you go back a like plurality of day two invites go to players from Ohio, where they have a lot more locals. It makes it a lot easier to go to other internets. Also within driving distance of a lot of regionals, but that's like the main frustration with locals for me is not that it even exists for day two. It's that it exists for travel awards and make those completely inaccessible to people in large parts of the country.
I can confirm that Ohio has like 6 tournament organizers, and all of them are like just really super high quality TOs. And we also have Mike Whitehall in Indiana. Like there's so many good TOs in the area, and you can't tell them to not host events because they're just all really great TOs and great people. Sorry. We've got a little bit of post tournament sickness going on, but yeah. It's a tough situation that doesn't come up in too many places and has an outsized impact in that one place.
All right. Sohaib, your turn. You're on top takes. You got to have a take. What's your take on the circuit and its issues?
So, I definitely agree. Like, we 100% need locals. Without locals, there was no way I would have been playing this game at all. It's just, but one thing that makes me sad about locals coming back is that we won't have like regionals as big as this anymore. I feel like after we have locals, everybody's going to start participating more in them, and so I'm just a little bit worried in that sense. What do you guys think about that? You guys think like we're going to go back to those like 100 or 200 people regionals again?
I have like a little bit of a separate thought actually. I feel like kind of to the point of at least that kind of started this whole conversation with the top 16 spots for North America. The fact that there aren't top 16 spots kind of like demotivates like a lot of like maybe like more established players going to their locals, and then if you're like a newer player, you might lose out on like being able to play a player of that caliber, like connect with them in some way. With regards to whether it might demotivate people to go to like bigger events, like maybe, but I feel like at this point in the season, it's kind of hard to tell since there aren't too many more regionals left. When locals come back. And then there's also like NEIC, and I don't know if there's like a huge relation between like local participation and international participation. So I wouldn't expect it to have like the biggest effect.
I feel like NAIC might be the biggest one, but I'm just saying like in future when like the locals come back, then I feel like the attendance will start to plummet a lot. And
I think like attendance this year is like largely driven just being in like a post-COVID Pokemon era, and just people being like hyper motivated by that, and also just a new game. I think
Yeah.
those were just the two biggest things.
Yeah, the biggest correlation between like regional attendance, the biggest correlating factor to regional attendance is just game sales. Like we Scarlet and Violet were incredibly like the good selling games. I think they're the biggest game on the Switch in terms of game sales. Do y'all know that offhand?
not
Audie?
sure.
Okay, I'm
I'm looking it
claiming
up.
that it was like the best selling game on the Switch. Um, I think that's true. And if you compare that to like uh, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, um, which the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon sold terribly, and uh, like a year and a half after the game's release, we saw some of the worst attended regionals in the modern era, with like most notably Daytona, that um, had 35 people attend the Masters Video Game Regional. Um, and there were some other factors in that, such as it was Thanksgiving weekend, and so flights to Florida, which usually are pretty cheap for a decent portion of the country, were just like really expensive. And it was also there was a new game hype, I think. By that point, just uh, people did not care about attending Daytona, but um, yeah, basically just a lot of people bought Scarlet and Violet, so a lot of people are going to tournaments. Like you're always going to hit a fraction of 1% of the player base that's going to be interested in attending a tournament. But if you get a bigger pie, then like that 1% is going to be a larger number uh, of just individuals.
That being
Yeah.
said, it also kind of drops off naturally. Like I know at Orlando, I sat next to a couple people in the round one where we had like the whole hour to just hang out and chill. And they were saying, yeah, this is my first regional. It was on my bucket list. I've been watching VGC for a while, or like for a lot of the pandemic. And I've always wanted to go to an event, and this was my first chance to go. Part of that was also that the events in 2022 did sell out in like a solid 30 seconds every single time. So if you weren't really on top of it, you would not have a chance to go. And so as a result, I think San Diego, Orlando, Knoxville had these massive numbers, partially because a lot of people had just wanted to go to an event for a long time and never had the chance. And I don't know how many of those people, especially if they go, 4-4, 3-3, something like that. They have to, or they want to play it out. They have to sit there till 10 p.m. They met their heroes once and they found out that maybe they're not all this they're cracked up to be, or like whatever. Except for Nails. Nails is everything everything that you see online and more. Stuff like that, or just like, the fact that regionals are not very fun outside of exactly competing if you don't already have a ton of friends. If you like, for me, it's great because I get to see my friends from all over the country. But I've also met people who are like, yeah, like I came to a regional to spectate because I don't like play this game super seriously. Didn't want to commit $70 to playing. And then what do? You watch the stream set, which is like sparsely populated for day one because everyone's busy playing. You can't play side events because they're all for TCG. Like, if that's your experience after going like 2-5 at an event, you're probably not coming back to another one. And so I think that is also part of it, is that they have to make events a better experience for people before we start to get repeat people showing up. And I think that's part of why we're starting to see numbers for even like Hartford's numbers for, I guess Fort Wayne is pretty big. And Charlotte was definitely pretty big, but like numbers for Hartford, number for Portland, those are not incredibly high like we expect them to be.
They're starting to fall off, which is the pattern that we expect. There's a ton of hype at the start of the gen, and then it's a gradual process. Like it's not night and day. Just you go from 750 player tournaments to like 150 player tournaments, but yeah, like falling off to like 600 entrants for the big ones is like pretty reasonable. Like just new gen hype is what fuels the massive attendance numbers, and so as that like decays, you start to lose numbers. And here's to hoping that Gen 10 delivers a similar amount of new gen hype, because Gen 9 was at least on par with like the biggest new gen hype that we've seen since. I mean, RBY was crazy, but since then, I think it's up there. Gen 6 had a lot of new gen hype as well, and that fueled some of the really big tournaments. I know there was a really massive California tournament, but I think this gen blew it out of the water. But yeah, basically, yeah, new gen hype good.
Yeah, and another thing I feel like right now they might be dropping is because the season is like more than halfway over, and a lot of the newer players that went like maybe 2-5, they're thinking like, there's no way I can get an invite now, so might as well not go anymore.
I don't even think
maybe
that most new players are playing for an invite. If it's your first event, you're not thinking about getting a Worlds invite. I mean, maybe if you do well, you start thinking about it. Oh, I went 6-3 at my first ever regional. I can do better than that. That's my first event, and then maybe you start thinking about a Worlds invite. But yeah, I think that I don't know many people who go to their first event thinking I'm going to get to Worlds, unless you've grinded the online circuit a lot. But yeah, no, I think that
Like
there's a lot of
sometimes you're
reasons
just
for it.
Justin Tang yourself, but most of the time you're not.
Well, Justin Tang had grinded online tournaments and
Yeah, and so
grinded
it's
the
Sempra.
ladder, and he knew that he was going to be like, I don't know if he really how much he knew that he was going to be a good player, but he had enough evidence that he was very capable at VGC, that he could chase a Worlds invite. Probably not
He
enough
came
evidence
into
to
the
know that he was going to win a regional that quickly, but
he came into the tournament with expectations of doing reasonably well.
yes. And honestly, same here. When I started playing in 2017, end of past post Worlds 2017, I've been playing VGC on and off online since 2015. I've been playing Pokemon on and off since 2009. I knew that I was like pretty good at Pokemon at the time. And I went 6-3 or 5-3 at my first regional and was like, oh, and then I enjoyed this and I think I'm pretty good. And I did miss Worlds that year, but came close. But like, that's the type of performance where you're like, I need to validate my belief that I am pretty good at Pokemon at your first event, before you really like, I think, commit to going to more events. And some of those people will have validated their performances. Honestly, the fact that they are bigger regionals and not like 80-person grind fests where all 80 people are competing for a Worlds invite is probably better for retention.
Yeah.
But some of those people will not, and they will drop off.
Yeah. My first tournament was Boston Open 2015. Came in with a bunch of friends that I'd already made through Pokemon, and I went 6-1, and I was hooked. So, like, yeah, just but I'd already played competitive Pokemon for 5 years before then. So, just it was like I came in and I already knew what I was doing, and yeah, just that those type of people are going to just I don't know, do better at their first events. And there's like no shame in like being inexperienced. Like skill is not a virtue. So
Absolutely. All right. So, we got two more things. I know we've been going for a little while. We got two more things we got to do. First and foremost, we got Nails. You asked for a couple minutes. You got something?
okay, yeah. So alongside money and championship points, regionals give out TCG packs as prizes. And my take on this is that they should not award packs that are small, like numbers of packs that are smaller than a box. The resale value of boxes, um, just like sealed product, that you can guarantee to someone that they're getting what they think they're getting. This is authentic. I haven't like sniped the high value packs out of it, and I'm just giving you the trash leftover. That is just a lot more valuable than loose packs. So from my last two tournaments, I've just gotten 18 loose packs, half a box, and these are relatively worthless.
What's the
The
what's the
value
name
of
of
a
the pack?
box.
Freezing Chains.
These are Scarlet and Violet base set. Um, which there was a ton of attention on Japan. I think there were like maybe some shortages of and just like people lining up to buy packs or something because there just wasn't enough of them. I offered these loose packs to some TCGers that I saw for like $40 for 18 packs or something, or maybe
Outside the venue, of
45 or
course.
so. Yeah,
Not
of
you,
course
you never
outside
do
the
that in
venue.
the venue.
It actually was outside the venue. I offered them on a layover in Reykjavik. Um, just like it's like, hey, I've got these loose packs running around my bag. Want to buy them off me? And they're like, nah, that's not really into that. And it's just like, so to celebrate this, I'm gonna do a live pack opening on stream. This is the type of content you tune into Telltake to see.
So a box is 24 packs, right? Or is it 30 packs?
36.
36.
Oh yeah. So the value of a box, if it's unopened, you can pretty easily get like 80 $90 at the venue for it, or you can just hold it in your closet for a few years. And the if you check the prices on some of the like Sun and Moon boxes, they're hundreds of dollars if you keep sealed products 2 years later. And so just giving VGC players like boxes that you're opening up and just destroying all their value is just it's not useful. I do have and like they only start giving out boxes at top four. Like if you top eight a regional, you should just get a box. And the prizes further down just aren't meaningful for the VG players. It's just like you get to meme around an open product. So, anyways, we got an energy switch. Uh,
We're a pack opening
this is
stream now.
we've got a Varoom. We've got a Clauncher. It's mirrored on my screen, so I have to like either recognize the Pokemon or read the name backwards. And it's kind of a struggle. We've got a Skiddo. It's hanging out in a city. That's pretty cool art. That one. We've got a Beach Court, which I think pretty playable. Yeah,
Sandacana.
that one looks playable. Sandacana. We're into the uncommons now. Oh, they've also reorganized the packs so that the rare is actually the last card, which is something that it's not been the case for a while, and it's pretty cool. We've got Casey, again, reading names backwards hard. And then we've got Paulo Spupa.
Pupa.
And then the rare is Pokemon Capture. Oh no, Pokemon Capture is common. The rare is a Dondozo,
Okay.
which pretty cool guy. He did well at Fort Wayne for me and did well at the tournaments. So yeah, a basic water energy to fuel my Dondozo. And if anyone wants the code card, here you go. There's the code. It's on screen. You can
Quick. Right now.
get in there.
Oh man, if
I will
I
point
knew,
out.
I would have sealed my packs too.
I pulled up the value. Scarlet Violet base set pack is market price is like $3, $3.05. Whereas a closed box is 115. And so you're looking at what 30? You said 36.
Yeah, 30 cents.
I mean, okay. So I guess if at least if you're talking about a TCG player, it's pretty comparable. But then you're taking I guess you're taking a loss regardless. But
So the like the sealed box prices tend to go burr over time.
That's true.
Like if you are just carrying around packs, it looks plausible that you could have so the way TCG packs are packaged, they just kind of map the rares onto um certain certain packs over the course of a box, and like at various points in a crate, if you know which box you're into, you can see based on a pattern where the chase cards are, and you can yank them. And if you're buying loose packs at a store, this is something to be mindful of, that the store owners, if they are in touch with the scene, then they can, if they're in the know, and they I think I don't know how well spread the information on where actually the chase cards are, but just buying loose packs at the store probably has a lower chance of hitting on the chase cards than buying sealed products. But yeah, it's just kind of like risky, I guess.
Yeah.
Or if gotchas are this is a gotcha. Gotchas are inherently risky anyways, but yeah, it's more risky, I guess, I suppose.
All right. So I've got one final question for everyone before we call it, which is brought to us by Freezeye, who asks us, do you think that Open Team Sheet plays a role in the meta being boring? This was after Alex was complaining that the meta is not bad, just boring.
So first I have to shout out Freezeye as a Dozo player for arguing for close team sheets. Bravo, fight your fight. Aside from that, maybe a little bit. I do think that that Palance is a team that generally gets better in open sheets. If you know what you're playing against, you're looking to set up all these pins with your type coverage, and you're looking to just have synergy, and you're looking to click spore, and spore counterplay is relatively telegraphed. You either have it or you don't. So it has a bunch of tools that work better, that can be checked by like different tech options. And if you identify those on Team Preview, then you can make better game plans to play around them. So um, I think that yeah, balance would be marginally worse. And if we're talking about meta viability, like the margins are what matters. Like you're just trying to chase margins on like basically everything you do. So making something marginally worse is like very impactful. Um, and the meta probably would be less boring if balance was less good and less of a tyrant. So yeah, yeah, probably. Um, I think that it's not like the only factor. And like so when people say the meta's boring, you have to assume that they're talking about balance being good, right? Um, and like kind of meta defining and such. So like I'll say yes, but I don't think it's like that simple for the other formats, just for this one specifically, because it's making one team better.
All right. Sohaib, your turn. What do you think?
Um, in the previous formats, we saw like with the open team sheets, there was a lot of diversity and everything. And pretty much what Nail said, he nailed it. Like it's just right now that the balance team just seems really, really solid, is what's making people like trauma, like it's bringing their trauma back to like how there used to be chalk and all those like good stuff teams that centralized the meta. But I feel like as time goes on, there will be like other cores that will start maybe emerging that will start to like beat these balance teams more. So I don't think it's just like in a traditional sense, yeah, like closed team sheets lets people bring some teams that are like that rely a lot on their like secret attacks or surprise factors. So and but in that sense, yeah, the if you compare it to just that by one, then 100% closed team sheets are more entertaining for the meta. But yeah, I think it's just the we identified a really strong team, like a really strong core, really quickly in the meta game. So that's why I think it's just seeming that it's pretty boring right now. And one more thing I'll just say about that is that even though it's like this core is performing well, it's just I feel like it's a lot it's based on the players that are using it because it's in my opinion it feels like a very fair team. It doesn't have like an overwhelmingly positive matchups into a lot of things. It's just the players that are piloting it are really, really good.
All right, Abhay, what do you think
Uh,
about Frieza's take on OTS making the meta boring?
yeah, I think Nails hit the nail on the head. Where I had the exact same thought, where it's like, yeah, maybe a little, probably a bit. Like I guess I saw like the IC was like on our like agenda a little bit, so just like as a quick reminder, there's another IC this weekend, by the way, or Global Challenge this weekend. Um, but whenever I like look at Global Challenge tweets or like see the stuff that people are playing against, I just think it's the funniest shit in the world. So at least from my perspective, like yeah, the meta can definitely be a lot more fun and a lot funnier if things are close sheets because frankly, you can just come up with like the dumbest shit ever and it could work because things are close sheets. But like if your definition of fun is like more from like a competitive integrity perspective and demonstrating who the best player in the world is, then yeah, maybe like not as fun. But like there's I don't know. Like this game has like been played in closed sheets for like every other season.
Forever, yeah.
Yeah, like forever, and people had plenty of fun then. And so I think like the meta could definitely benefit from a pure fun perspective if it's closed sheets.
I
Um,
Yeah.
I think that Nails is not entirely correct. I think that he's partially correct in that specifically Amoonguss becomes way better in open team sheet. I think it is the Pokemon that benefits the most because you know exactly where the safety goggles are, and that is just so huge. That's like the number one thing that makes the move, and also the Terra Grass now in this format as well. You know where all the moves are the KO Amoonguss, and so you can play it with it a lot more conservatively. Pollen Puff is a lot stronger move. as a result. And so I think Amoonguss specifically is a Pokemon that gets a lot better in Open Team Sheet. And in just this case, we found the best Firewater Grass core to pair around Amoonguss. That makes it so strong. But I don't think like Palafin and Arcanine necessarily benefit from Open Team Sheet a ton, especially because those Pokemon can viably run a lot of moves. Whether or not it becomes more boring is probably true. Something like Sub Palafin would have been a lot more surprising and maybe a lot more common in closed team sheet where your opponent isn't expecting it. They think they can safely spore into you. Something like, or like Haze, for example, maybe more or less common. Clear Smog Amoonguss is something where your Dodozo counterplay is very, very difficult. It's very difficult to find consistent Dodozo counterplay. It's a lot easier to do it in Open Team Sheet where you can see whether your opponent is going to Terra Grass or Terra Steel or Terra Flying or whatever, or their Surf, right? Something like that. And so as a result, I think that like Clear Smog Amoonguss becomes a lot better in closed team sheets. And if you need a tip for the GC. But that being said, we did see some really boring teams do well in 2022. We saw Rinya Sun really dominate. Yes, there was Weakness Policy Zard. I don't think that was a closed team sheet gimmick by any means towards the end of the season. I think that like a lot of the teams that did well at Worlds were very standard. And I mean, there were some very fun teams as well. There was the Galissapod. You watch my stream match and you see that I got like semi-close team sheeted by Taunt and Cineroar that didn't have Parting Shot, Flare Blitz, one of the two, I forget. So like there's some stuff that happens like that leads to more fun teams as well. But we've also seen some fun teams do well in Open Team Sheet. Namely like Wolf's Parish team is a really interesting team that came out of nowhere. And we see all the innovations on Dodozo that kind of come out of nowhere. So I just think it's Amoonguss that makes the that really centralizes Open Team Sheet more than anything else. Your Amoonguss counterplay is a lot better, easier to find when it is closed team sheet. And so yes, I guess OTS plays a role in the meta being boring, but I wouldn't say that OTS inherently makes the meta boring. It just so happens to work that way in a meta game where Amoonguss counterplay is so limiting. I think that if you brought Tapu Fini and Tapu Koko back, or like some of the other terrain setters back, or some other sufficient counterplay to Shroom, then maybe OTS becomes a lot more interesting, despite the fact that you can see all your opponent's techs.
Also, real quick,
insane.
yeah. Also, real quick, yeah. Just real quick, like Open Team Sheet to me also. I don't want to say kill because that's like kind of a dramatic word, but it definitely like lessened a bit of the flexibility of Terra in terms of just like how creative you really can be with it. Like at this point, you can definitely the meta is like pretty centralized around like a lot of Terras, and a lot of that is because like the opponent's always just gonna know what Terra you are, right? Well, just as like one example, like I think me, Adi, and Sohaib, we went to a grassroots local like first week of Series 1 or whatever. And I brought a Terra Fairy Rotom because I was like, no one's going to expect a Terra Fairy Rotom in front of their Hydreigon. So it's just kind of this fun stuff like that where Open Team Sheet definitely just kills a little bit of the creativity in the builder that you can have, where you can plan out like specific boards that you want your Terra to essentially just counter, where while yes, like it is, you could argue that it's like a gimmick, you're just like abusing like the knowledge gap, but at the same time, it's like if we're having a conversation about fun, like to me, that's just fun. I don't know.
My take on this is actually just Terra Fairy was very solid in Series 1. Like, I had Terra Fairy on my Arcanine a couple times, and it was very good for the same reason. It just was a very good defensive type in Series 1. So I think that's actually just you found something good, and it would have worked in Open Sheets too.
Yeah, probably. It's just I think you could. I feel like there's just more that could have been done with Terra
little
in
bit.
closed team sheets, but
I think so. Like what closed sheets lets you do is it lets you get away with like mistakes in your team building more, and like OTS is more just trying to find the holes in your opponent's team and punish them for it, which you can either take or leave. It's just I think it makes the meta skew a little bit more offensive overall, because offensive teams are on average better at punishing mistakes in team building than uh, close sheets, and close sheets tends to favor um, slow information gathering. It just gets buffed by close sheets. So yeah, like it's just like they're different, but I don't think they're like better or worse. But yeah.
One thing I'll say regarding the closed team sheet is like, uh, it will just give it an advantage to like the people that have more connections during a tournament. Like, you can keep your information hidden, but like by round 2 or 3, like a lot of the people are gonna know what you're running anyway. So that will be a massive disadvantage to you if you're someone that's known, and then you're playing against people that you don't know, but they already know everything about your team. So yeah, it becomes a little more interesting, but then the more known players become like at a higher, they have a much higher disadvantage in these tournaments then. Another pack
yeah.
open.
Got another pack. So on that note, we've gone a little long. Thank you, Neme, for the stream. Sadly, this is do we have the shout out command? Obviously, Iron Nemesis, one of the best players in LATAM, but we don't. Okay, I'll have to figure that out. Anyways, thank you for the raid, and go ahead and redeem Nails' TCG code. Finding a way to effectively give away those after his successful performance at the European International Championships. Keep in mind, if you're watching this on Twitch, the team report will be out tomorrow. If you're watching this on YouTube, the team report was out yesterday, so why haven't you watched it already? And so, that's a cool card.
Yeah, no, the arts are really sick on this booklet.
Yeah.
But we are pretty much wrapping it up. Don't forget to sign up for the GC sometime in the next 2 days, or again on YouTube today. Sign up ends in a few hours if you're watching on YouTube. So thank you all for tuning in. Abhay, Nails, Sohaib, thank you all for coming on. Did you have any final words or shout outs you guys wanted to give?
Shout out to Amberflight Gaming. Y'all are great. Thanks for the support. Seeing AFG people and my replies at tournaments is great. Shout outs to Tub Nation. Love y'all. And that's about it.
Okay, yeah. Shout outs. I guess shout out to y'all for letting me be on today. It was fun. Shout outs to Team India and all the Indian VGC players, or all the brown VGC players in general. Shout out to all of y'all. I always follow every single one that ends up doing well in the tournament, and Rajan plays all of them round 1, and you guys always beat Rajan round 1. So keep it up. Yeah, and I guess shout out, Samurais, the MPA team that I there. Yeah,
Best team.
that's pretty much it. Best team. Oh yeah, Naughty's on the team. Yeah, shout out to Naughty.
I'm the best player on the team. Certainly not the player with the worst record. I would never.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, thank you for inviting me to Tub Takes today, and just shout outs to everyone that supported me during the tournament and always supports me. I really appreciate that, and yeah, that's about it. That's a cool card. Their drawings on these are amazing.
Yeah, I think that the tarantula that this evolves from. Oh wait, no, this was actually a sick pack, because there's also just a Gardevoir EX in here, which was the deck that won EUIC. So that pack was crap. What the heck? It was just a double EX pack. The baller. And yeah, this card is pretty valuable. So a good hit.
All right. And on that note, I will be
I
sending
need
you
to
guys.
get some sleeves. I wasn't prepared to actually pull anything good. I was just like thumbing through packs, but here's the code. But definitely made my money back on that pack for sure.
And on that note, we are going to be sending you over to Jin Furai. So let him know where you came from. And till next time, we'll see you guys all later.